and it says that it's warming up.
Okay.
It's testing the broadcast, waiting for the broadcast to be published.
By the way, my picture is coming out good. I'm synced with my voice and everything.
Wonderful. It is. It is. It
Okay,
is.
cool.
No
Awesome.
lag, no delay, nothing out there. I usually have music playing, but then every time I do that, it goes hot. So I can't have any music playing on in the background. You seeing it yet?
So it looks like I probably should just silence the stream and just do
Yes.
the audio off Zoom.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because I started to hear myself twice. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, so just go ahead and mute that. So do you see the video on there yet?
Yes, I do. Yeah, starting soon, 2:40 and counting.
Because I don't see it yet.
Okay. I got the notification on YouTube and clicked on it. So.
I don't see it on here yet, and I don't know why. Home. Let me try it again. Let me go to my Switch account. I actually got to monetize this thing, so we'll see how everything
Oh,
is
nice,
going.
nice.
All right, I got it. Okay, we're live. I can see it there. They can hear us. All right, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't see it on here yet, and I don't know why. Home. Let me try it again. Let me go to my Switch account. I actually got to monetize this thing, so we'll see how everything
Oh,
is
nice,
going.
nice.
All right, I got it. Okay, we're live. I can see it there. They can hear us. All right, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't see it on here yet, and I don't know why. Home. Let me try it again. Let me go to my Switch account. I actually got to monetize this thing, so we'll see how everything
Oh,
is
nice,
going.
nice.
All right, I got it. Okay, we're live. I can see it there. They can hear us. All right, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't see it on here yet, and I don't know why. Home. Let me try it again. Let me go to my Switch account. I actually got to monetize this thing, so we'll see how everything
Oh,
is
nice,
going.
nice.
All right, I got it. Okay, we're live. I can see it there. They can hear us. All right, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't see it on here yet, and I don't know why. Home. Let me try. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the 42 Social Club on Friday afternoon, 7 p.m. Pacific time, all around the world. Thank you so much for making a little bit of time this weekend, given it was quite the week, just like I like to say on the twitter.com. The reason my feet hurt is because I kick so much ass. Hopefully you were able to do the same. It was week went sideways quick for me,
Friday,
but anyway else, it was
welcome
actually
to
good
the
to kind
42
of
Social
have
Club
the
on
day
Friday
end, and it was
afternoon,
actually
7 p.m.
fantastic. So
Pacific time,
thank you everyone that was
all
able to
around the
join.
world. Thank you so much
This is actually going.
for
I'm
making a
actually
little bit of
extremely
time
excited
this weekend, given it was quite
for our
the week,
guest
just like I
today.
like to say.
Next to Vontez
On the
Perfect, I
twitter.com,
am actually
there's a
eternally
reason my
grateful
feet hurt is because I kick
to this
so
gentleman
much
who gave me
ass.
the start, who
Hopefully
gave
you
me
were
the
able to do the
opportunity to
same.
be able to be
It
part
was
of
week
the
went
Sun Devils
sideways
community,
for me,
but also
but anyway else, it was actually
get my
good to
word
say
out.
that
So again, always
have the
very
day
eternally
ended
grateful
exactly 7
to the
p.m.
one
Thank
and
you
the
everyone
only
that was able to
Hode. How
join.
are you, my man?
This is
Welcome
actually
to
for
the social
making
club.
a little bit of
Extremely,
Doing great,
extremely
Jedi.
excited.
Excellent for having me.
given it was
Good,
our
good.
guest
Just
today,
again,
like
how's
next
everything
to
going?
Vontez
Again, how was
Perfect,
your week
I
so
am
far?
actually eternally grateful.
Yeah, week's been
to this
crazy.
gentleman
It's
who
kind of
gave
like
me the start, who
the
gave
new
me the
normal,
opportunity
I
to be
guess.
able
Maybe
to
not the
be
new
part
normal
of,
we're hoping for one day to happen, but just rolling with the punches like everybody else.
Exactly. That's good. And I apologize for that because I had something else on in the background going, so I'm sure you heard an echo. So anyway, I'm really happy you're able to join today. So um, obviously, kind of it's been a good week. Obviously, lots of good things. The biggest news to come off Twitter so far was Kyle Murphy's birthday. Obviously, that was a couple days ago. So shout out to Kyle Murphy for out there. But yeah, so anyway, obviously, given the curious times that we have right now, um, there's been some interesting news, and I know we'll jump into that. I think you and I talked about, I wanted to let everyone know, I'm drinking a Decoy Pinot Noir. I don't even know I think I like this one. This is Hopland, California. I don't even know where it's from, but I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit, only because I couldn't find my favorite beer at Total Wine. So I'm hoping Full Circle ships Illa Vanilla to Pleasanton soon. And so I understand you're probably celebrating with some water with us today.
Yes, I am.
Good, good. So saw some of the news, some of the posts earlier today coming out from ASU specific to athletics, and it was very interesting because it was on the heels of what we saw with the University of Houston, right? That was kind of the biggest false start I don't think any of us as fans wanted to see, but I think it was one that I guess many of us had to have. So really, I guess it was actually good timing that ASU was able to come out with an interesting plan, right, to kind of avoid some of those pitfalls, and it sounds to be fairly well thought out. And so I know some of these items are posted in the huddle on devilsdigest.com, but what were some of the things that impressed you the most off of that presser you joined on today?
Well, first of all, just to clarify, it was a presser of Arizona State laying out its process as to how they're going to start conducting the voluntary workouts this coming Monday, the 15th. They're starting out with the football team, and as you mentioned, ironically, this was a scheduled call, but ironically, not even a couple hours before the call, University of Houston came out and said that their voluntary workouts that started, I believe, on June 1st have, at least for now, come to a screeching halt because they had more than a handful, I think, of players that tested positive. I'm sorry, for COVID-19. So that obviously was, quite alarming for folks that are just anxious to get the football season going, and you see something like that happen. Uh, from what I was able to gather from the reports on Twitter, and I know when you say reports on Twitter, you got to be really careful about that. There's so much misinformation
Right.
on there, whether it's sports or anything else. But in any event, they made it sound like they did not test the University of Houston fans before they started working out. If anything came out of today's call with the media and the Arizona State officials, they said that there definitely is going to be testing, and really has been testing going on since Monday, where the first batch of 27 football players arrived on campus. They've been quarantined for 7 days. They have been tested for COVID-19 and really had just a physical exam in general, just to make sure that they are definitely A-OK physically to start these workouts this coming Monday. There were not one but two medical professionals on that call, and they were just asked specific questions on how you're going to handle positive tests, what exactly does a player go through before the workouts and during the workouts, and one of them tests positive. What's going to go on over there. We're going to have an article later on tonight, really detailing all that stuff. But I think the biggest takeaway that I took away from that, Arizona State is not rushing into anything. They're really taking the medical professional advice that they are lucky to have, being such a big university, really taking that medical advice into account and really doing the due diligence. I mean, I really came away with the impression that no stone has been left unturned as the football team is starting these voluntary workouts. So I think it was definitely comforting to see that Arizona State is really taking all the necessary precautions. And the question that I asked in specific said, look, it's not only you have to sell the players and maybe even indirectly the fans that you're doing everything right. What about the parents of the players? And Gene Boyd, who's the de facto general manager, of this football team, if you will, said that sure, there's some parents that have some concerns here and there, but all of them have come away convinced that Arizona State is really taking all the necessary precautions available. So, at this point, that's all you can do is just really lay out the process, be as transparent as possible, and show the players and their families that you're being as cautious as possible. We hope the process goes well. It's anybody's guess what's going to happen these next couple of months as ASU and every other college team out there is trying to get ready for the football season.
Absolutely, and I think that's to your point, right? Because I think it was I think it was a very mindful approach based on kind of what you and I were talking about. One of the differentiators, and again, I guess we're still trying to find out the details about what happened at Houston, right? But I think, as I understood it, they're not letting everyone in, right? They're doing like phased pods or something, right? And then they're saying, okay, these guys, we're testing them, we're letting them work out. Is it like they get one part of the facility and then like another pod's at another part of the facility and like that?
Well, there are going to be groups of 3 groups of 9 players that are going to work out when they have their turn in the strength and conditioning program, which normally would take place this time of year. So Joe Connolly, the head sports performance coach, and his staff are basically going to have 3 sessions every day. And I know there's going to be a day off or maybe 2 days off a week, but they're going to have just groups of 9 working at a time in the weight room and outside in the field they have adjacent to the football facilities, doing conditioning drills. And basically, my understanding is that you're just spacing it enough that these group of 9 players have time to be isolated as possible in the facility. In other words, walk in, just 9 players at a time, go to the locker room, get changed, do the workouts. Again, only 9 players and the coaching staff right there. Shower after the workouts, eat after the workouts, and leave with having minimal to no contact with the next group of 9 players that's going to show up that day at the facility. So yes, Joe Connell and his staff are going to be working quite hard, I would have to say, because they can't have a group of 30, 40 players at a time like they usually do. It's really going to be 9 players, 9 players, 9 players. And just like a lot of us are seeing right now when we go to our favorite department store or grocery store, where you're only entering in one door and exiting a total different door, that's exactly what's going to happen with these group of 9 players. They know that they're following a very specific path, if you will, once in the facility. They're not going left, they're not going right. They just need to really possibly even follow the arrows that are going to be on the floor to say, okay, you're going right now through these doors to the locker room, through these doors to either outside of the field to do conditioning drills or into the weight training room. And when you're exiting that the weight room or the outside field where you're doing conditioning drills, you are following a certain path to go back in the locker room. And again, it's just being as cautious as possible so you're not inadvertently interacting with anybody else, whether it be just the next group of 9 players or just anybody else that happens to be in the facility at that time. All coaches and players, my understanding is, are going to wear a mask during workouts and are going to wear a mask at all times during their stay in the facility. I think the only time they won't be wearing a mask is when they sit down to eat. And I know in the past couple of months they did have their meals in to-go boxes. That actually wasn't specified one way or another, but it could be that, yes, they're getting 3 square meals a day, but they might just be taking that meal to go and leaving the facility again, just to avoid as much incidental contact with other people in the building. So that's again going back to the new normal term. That's what's going to happen.
Right, and it's actually interesting too because I'm now that I'm thinking about it, kind of connecting the dots because we are also seeing news from the NBA. Right, we're seeing news from the NBA that there's going to be the bubble down in Orlando. But one of the things that came out this afternoon is that all the Disney staff, all the staff that is going to be helping out, whatever it may be, doesn't have to. They're free to come and go. They're free to do whatever they want. They don't have to do everything that the NBA players that are sequestered there on the campus and in this bubble its essence, just kind of it's an inconsistency. And so it's actually very interesting to see that they are maintaining that consistency. Not are they only trying to separate them all out in their own little pods, but also there's like, you know what, no one from the outside is allowed to participate in that either. And so they're being able to make sure that's doing well. And they're tracing and they can find out all that as well. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see because I haven't seen any other organizations announce what they're actually doing. It's not that it's not out there, obviously, because they're not your beat or mine or anything else. But I
Yeah,
wasn't sure,
exactly.
given your network, what have you heard? At other schools, is it anything like this, or is it still kind of they're kind of feeling their way depending on what everyone else does?
Yeah, honestly, I really haven't looked too much in the specifics of other schools, but I would have to imagine that at a minimum, and again, this goes back to the University of Houston, which you mentioned earlier, which they supposedly did not test the players before workouts started. But I think that has to be the exception. That really can't be the rule. And again, I don't know the situation down there at the
Right.
University of Houston. I mean, was that by design? Was it just something that they just a path they didn't want to take that thought that made sense not to take? And obviously, if that's the case, then it really came to bite them
Yeah,
quite hard.
absolutely.
But yeah, I have a hard time believing that any Pac-12 team out there is doing something that's drastically different than Arizona State, whether it's being more stringent or being much more lax. I really cannot imagine other Pac-12 teams being a whole lot different in their approach from what Arizona State is doing. It does seem that at least the vast majority of Pac-12 teams are going to begin their own voluntary workouts starting next week. So I kind of
Monday,
doubt you'll
right?
see. Yes, Monday the 15th. Yeah. So I doubt you'll see very many, if any, Pac-12 teams that are deliberately announcing voluntary workouts taking place in July because you just really need as much time as possible to get these players into shape. And just to mention something that some folks may or may not know, there are going to be walkthroughs with the football taking place roughly the third week of July, or maybe towards the end of July, for a period about 2 weeks. So basically, very light practicing with the football, if you will. Definitely no full pads or anything like that. And then the I guess we'd call maybe just borderline second week of August, around August 7th. Then you just go into full-fledged fall camp practices that are going to take place pads with everything. So basically, you're just really trying to ease these players as much as possible. Get them in the shape. Obviously, it's been a long layoff, and even players that are working diligently on their own. And we saw some videos of like Ladarius Henderson pushing cars and stuff like that. But I think that they're definitely making sure that these players are really being given as much time as possible to acclimate to being in football shape. And a lot of times you hear coaches saying that you can run 10 miles every other day and you can lift weights 2-3 hours a day, but are you in football shape? Are you ready to have a full padded practice just like you would have in the preseason or during the regular season? And that's really the goal right now, starting as early as possible, is to get those players in that football shape. So they're really giving themselves as much time as possible. And we'll see when it's all said and done if this is a smooth enough of a process that they can really just hit the ground running in the full padded practices August 7th or so.
And that was one of my things, and I mentioned this to Kyle Murphy on some other conversations, but I haven't heard any other feedback. We may have talked about this, privately, but it was just my biggest concern is injuries, right? Not being able to condition to the point where they need to be. And again, I don't like. I spoke the ASU victory into existence where I yelled bong and the field goal went right and and we won the game. I don't want to speak anything else into existence, but I guess there is a routine and a level of conditioning that these players have to be in order to be able to face the rigors of a full 12, 13, 14 game season. And so are people talking about that? Have you heard that? Is it a concern? I think maybe Herm mentioned it, but anyway, I don't know what you may have heard or seen.
Yeah, Herm Edwards said what a lot of other coaches have said, that they do want to have 6 weeks of practices when again, and this is just really football practices, not so much strength and
Right.
conditioning sessions. They want 6 weeks of practices to get ready for the season. And the NCAA has been able to meet that request in a way where the first 2 weeks or so are just walkthroughs with football. So basically, you're not running anything at full speed, but you're definitely running a practice where a quarterback is taking a snap from the center, and the defense is lining up however they need to line up given the down and distance, and that's how you're conducting practice. So it's definitely nothing full speed, but it's going to be something where it just would resemble more of a Thursday practice before a Saturday game, if that makes sense, where there's really little to no contact, and it's more like, okay, let's make sure that we're executing what we need to execute on either side of the ball. And even though it's not full speed, just to make sure that we're really concentrating on all the details being there and executing it that way. So that's really what the
Got
walkthroughs
it.
with football are going to be the first 2 weeks. And again, August 7th or so, then you're going into the more quote unquote traditional practices.
Right. And looking at my calendar, then, so 6 weeks puts us with us with, I guess, fall camp would be starting on the 13th of July or the.
Um, uh, yeah, the walkthroughs I understand are going to be more around July 20th to July 27th. Arizona State is
Okay.
starting on the traditional Labor Day weekend. Some schools, I think Arizona is one of them, playing Hawaii in what they call week zero, which is
All
always the
right.
week before Labor Day weekend. So obviously, a team like Arizona and Hawaii, for example, are going to be allowed to start to have their schedule be a week earlier than most of the teams. I think they said something like 118 FBS teams are starting like ASU on Labor Day weekend. That leaves about less than 20 teams that are starting a week zero a week before Labor Day weekend.
That's actually interesting then. So looking at the calendar, so we almost have 1, 2, 3, 29th, 4. It'll actually be a full 5 weeks of warm up then that they can actually kind of figure their way out, right? Try to keep everyone as clean as possible, limiting contact and everything else. That's actually kind of that is promising because I'm not going to lie. I actually mentioned this to George Wrightster um, and Ralph, not necessarily in the Pac-12 Apostles, but on their one of their tweets, and I'm like, I've let the season go because I don't know what to do and what to expect. So that's why I'm kind of like, because if it happens, then I'm ahead already, right? I'm not like, okay, it has to happen, it has to happen, it has to happen. I mean, I bought the Phil Steele preview, right? So it's like I'm not totally lost, but it's just a matter of, okay, is that really something that is going to happen? And I think that's where a lot of people are really worried because it's like it's such a tight timeline when there's just so much we don't know. And someone brought it up. It was a reply on a tweet, right? It's like it's back to how they're going to organize these pods, regular season practice, right? Are they going to keep all the offensive players together in their own pods, and the defensive players in their other pods? Because if they're doing pods of 9, that's what, almost 10, maybe? No, how many? Like 7, 8 unique pods that would be running around on a practice field, maybe?
I would say more like eight, or between 8 and 9. Yeah.
And that's the thing too, right? How do you mix them up, right? Do you mix them up with parts of offense and defense, or they make them all offense? Because then if one of the pods gets sick right before a game, right? Someone was saying they got to forfeit that game if you're down or you don't have enough bodies. So it's going to be quite the science experiment. It's actually very interesting to kind of see what we have to deal with, and I'm grateful you're going to be on the forefront because I mean you are brilliant, your team's brilliant. So again, I always appreciate everything you bring. So I'm actually looking forward to those updates and everything else we get to find out about. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. I know I got a couple games and I kind of hinted one at you, but everyone on the chat, thanks again for joining. Tom and Sue, thanks again so much for joining. Appreciate you guys. Is Arizona Hawaii week 0 or is that week 1? I knew they were week 0 last year, but I don't know about this year.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Without looking at the schedule in front of me, I really can't say that with certainty. But I know they're going to be, like I said, between 15 and 20 teams, whatever the FBS teams that are actually going to start playing on week 0. But I do know that Arizona and Hawaii are meeting. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the season opener. I just don't have it in front of me right now if it's going to be week 0 or actually just Labor Day weekend.
Regardless, we are cheering for Coach Graham nonetheless.
Yeah, and I joked about it months and months ago when the schedule came out. I said, you're going to see a good contingency of ASU fans, maybe dressed in Hawaii gear, who knows? But if not, always dressed in ASU gear. That always works, right?
That would that's funny too. You say that because I think Hawaii is maybe one of the few universities I will actually wear their gear. It's like I know Jonathan Poppy will wear any college university he wants, especially Oregon, but he'll that's probably one of the few that I would actually wear the right combo, so I'm excited for that one. I'm actually kind of excited to see him wearing those the chain kukui nuts and the lays like Roley did last year, because he had some pretty amazing lays on the sideline as well. Matt Flory just posted 829, so I think that is
week 0. Yeah.
Yep. So that's actually very cool. God bless week 0. Love week 0. I just don't want to participate in week 0.
Yeah, because I remember when seeing the schedule, I said, "Wow, this really works out well for ASU fans that want to make the trip to Tucson and cheer on Todd Graham." And
is it really a trip to Tucson though? Although I can't badmouth it too much because my parents are still down there, and so yes. And that I don't know if we've broken bread down there. We're still gonna have to.
Yeah.
But as long as we've broken bread up here, that was good. So, as always, everyone in the chat, appreciate everyone joining. Make sure you post your questions in there. There's going to be a lot of stuff in there. Look at that. ASU Quadratic. We broke pizza. We broke bread, had pizza. I miss the heck out of you. So, love seeing you up in Payson. God willing, one of these years I get to return and see you. Probably not this year, but next year. But again, good to see you, ASU Quadratic. One of the questions, obviously something came out, it's been big in the news for the past couple weeks, is the Black Lives Matter movement, and just very critical and actually very, as awful as it is, it's a very interesting and exciting time, hopefully, and I'm praying for a significant change relative to what, you and I have seen in our lifetime, right, and just educating our kids and having them participate in that. But one of the things that came out of ASU, and I think it was Coach Pierce, that came out with that, and it was actually very powerful. It was a very, very powerful statement, but I was curious to learn more about that. They called it We 22, and there was amazing list on there. There were some names that were not on there. I'm not exactly sure why. We can talk about that later, but wanted to get your feedback and see if you've gotten a chance to talk to anyone there at ASU about the We 22, because again, I think it's something that it's pioneering. I haven't seen something similar from any other university, and I think a lot of people have been impressed with it. I think given their NFL experience, all of them were able to be part of it, but just wanted to get your thoughts and see what you've heard and seen.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get too much information about it, honestly, but what I was able to gather is that the We 22 was not in response to the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, but it's actually a mentoring program, if you will, that's been going on. I think it's even dating back to last year. I don't know how much prior to that, but basically it's all the not all the Black coaches, but a lot of the Black coaches, both in football, basketball, other sports, Black administrators in the ASU athletic department, really taking on a mentoring role that just extends beyond coaching X's and O's. And honestly, it's already an approach that we've seen for quite a few years. The Championship Life is the name of the program, which Gene Boyd did head
right
at one point, and then because of his duties right now with the football team, he handed it over. I'm sorry, to somebody else, and I apologize if the name escapes you right now. But he was one of those administrators on that We 22 post that came out earlier this week. And basically, they are definitely dedicated to just mentoring Black student athletes, not only to be the best in their sport, but also really be the best person they can be when their playing days at Arizona State are over, and whether or not there's a professional career or that last 1 year or last 10 years, really trying to prepare them for life after Arizona State. And obviously, the mentoring program is geared towards Black student athletes different than it would be to other student athletes at Arizona State. So it's really just more of a mission of the Black coaches and Black administrators at Arizona State to make sure that when a Black student athlete leaves Arizona State, that they have all the tools uh, possible to really be able to have that productive life after football days are over. Again, whether it's right after they play their last game as a Sun Devil or after they played their last game in the NFL or the NBA, what have you. So that's something that all the coaches, all the administrators on that post have been involved with. Like I said, my understanding is dating back to somewhere in 2019. You talked about some absent names, and yes, Ray Anderson, Herm Edwards, and Marv Lewis were not actively mentoring those players as the other 22 individuals on that post. So if anybody was looking for a reason why that's not taking place, they just have not been involved in that specific capacity. So it'd be disingenuous, I guess, to put their names and call them the We 25 or something like that. Now, it's not to say that the three individuals I just mentioned don't do any mentoring at all, but the capacity of their mentoring is very different from an Antonio Pierce in football or a Sean Bruno in basketball, for example. So that's really the backstory of that We 22, and I really applaud Arizona State for doing that. That's definitely proactive approach to take. Again, this wasn't in response to the horrific tragedy of George Floyd, and I think that's something that can definitely appeal to prospects out there that are just looking for a specific team culture, looking for a specific school culture for Arizona State, are ready to have that in place and maybe not be a Johnny come lately as some other schools are doing, which, for whatever reason they employed it, now in June 2020 versus sometime in 2019. But I like the fact that Arizona State has been on the cutting edge from that specific aspect. I think it's only something that can really better the school and better its reputation.
Absolutely. I think it's a brilliant, like you said, any sort of mentoring program. That's definitely something I've been trying to do myself with ASU in a different capacity. But I think mentoring is so important, right? Because you're able to talk with someone that has made those mistakes, those things that made and shaped them, and then being able for an athlete or a student or student athlete or whoever they may be to be able to learn and know that pitfall without having to repeat the mistake, right? And being able to do that as well. So that's actually brilliant. Lane Tubb is saying, actually, is there any involvement from the Black professors on campus? And I would imagine that's a different program or complete different, not that the athletic department wouldn't participate in it, but I would imagine that's something that's organized separately on the campus side of it all.
Yeah, I really can't speak to any non-ASU athletics
right
approach or anything like that. I mean, not to sound like too much of a tunnel vision guy.
No, of course, but I don't want you to speak out of turn or anything. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I can only speak to the We 22 and the post that I saw, the one or two conversations I had beyond seeing that post, getting a little more information on what exactly that involves. And if some people recall the interviews that we had with Brandon Ayuk and I forget who else, but just somebody like Antonio Pierce, and like you said, really drawing from his own life experiences, talking about a player that wasn't a heralded player out of high school, came from the junior college route, just like Brandon Ayuk, played in the NFL, had a very successful career, and telling Brandon Ayuk what to expect from the NFL Combine, what to expect from the NFL Draft, what to expect from the NFL lifestyle as a player, and that's not the crux of the We 22. I mean, it's a lot of other elements that's involved in that, but that's really that's one aspect, and maybe even a small aspect of a mentoring that Antonio Pierce, for example, can offer the players at Arizona State, and that's something that not a lot of coaching staffs in the Pac-12 or elsewhere can really have that credibility and really know even how to approach a player like Brandon Ayuk getting ready for the next step of his career. So I really
That was a brilliant article, and I don't know if it was an article or if it was a video, but it was all about life, right? What to expect, what you're going to do when you get on the team, right? How you get paid, how much is going to get taken away from you, how much you will see, how much you're not see, who what else is going to come in, what are the other nuances that no one, I mean, especially when I was in college, there's all kinds of stuff like, taxes and deductions and all this other brouhaha that I know now. But when I was coming out of college, especially as an athlete, when you have people surrounding yourself that may quite potentially try to shield you so you don't, but they still get your money, is just brilliant for them. Especially now, how there are even more and more talented players that are, quite honestly, gonna get drafted from ASU, because that I understand 2 years is a trend. 2 first rounders, which is brilliant, and that's always something that's actually very cool to be able to see that people are going to know. And like you said, this week 22, I searched ASU, and now it's now something that I can actually rely upon, right? So that's actually awesome, because I didn't know it was a mentoring program. So that's actually brilliant to be able to know what they're doing about that. And then I'd obviously definitely want to talk about basketball. I want to transition to that, because we can't, and we'll probably touch on some baseball as well, because I think it was 5 Sun Devils got drafted in the MLB draft. So that's brilliant, right? So I don't know if that's historic. It sounds historic, but we'll talk about that shortly. Speaking about Google searches, right? There was a recent offer, I believe, to someone. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Earlier today, he actually got an offer and actually Googled Bobby Hurley, and that's how he realized that he's, an historic guard in the NC2A. So it actually kind of helped, another tidbit there. And so remind me who that was and what their position is and what, do you remember? So hopefully I'm describing that right.
Yeah, you're remembering it right, but now you're going to force me to try to pronounce the name that's really, really hard to pronounce. I mean, obviously I wasn't familiar until a few days ago, until the offer came. But check it out my front page at devilsartist.com. How about that? So I won't try to.
Okay, well, we will do that, and that's fair, right? That's actually fair, because I definitely want to direct traffic to there, because again, like I said, I love what you're doing on there. Now, we did have another question out there. I think we were talking about this. Martin and Verge coming back potentially next season, given how everything is going with the NBA currently. So ASU has already gotten, the NC2A has allowed one Sun Devil come back with our punter Turk. So is it actually possible that we go 3 for 3 and they actually come back, given the whole situation? Again, I'm not going to, your crystal ball may be as clear as my bottle here, but is there even at least chatter of them coming back, or are they really happy that they've moved on to this next chapter?
No, there definitely is chatter coming back, and they are a separate situation than Michael Turk, because Michael Turk signed with an agent. Michael Turk was available to be there on draft day, was available to be there to be signed as an undrafted free agent. That never took place.
Okay.
Alonzo Verge and Remy Martin, just like any other player that declared early for the NBA draft or put their name in the NBA draft, has until August 3rd to withdraw their name. That date, I believe, previously was June 3rd, obviously because COVID-19, one of many deadlines in the NCAA rule that they got pushed back a month or two. So they have until August 3rd to officially say whether they're going to remain in the NBA draft or just pull their name out. My understanding is that Alonzo Verge is much closer to doing so than Remy Martin. I won't etch in stone that Remy Martin is not coming back to Arizona State, but you asked me a direct question, I'll give you a direct answer. I think that the landscape for players coming out that may not get a good shot of being drafted is not that conducive to still embark on a professional career right here, right then, because the bigger contracts, whether it be for G League, whether it be for playing overseas, this is again assuming that you're not going to play in the NBA, even as an undrafted free agent, the money is simply not there at the level as it was this time a year ago, and probably won't be at the level a year from now.
Exactly.
In June of 2021. So that's really an element that should help teams like Arizona State, who have an extremely talented backcourt. If those two players come back, I would say easily the best backcourt in the Pac-12. And if I had to make a list of top 15, top 20, there's no way I'm not putting that backcourt of Remy Martin and Alonzo Verge on that list. So I'm pretty optimistic that both of them are going to come back again. I think that they picked a wrong time, if you will, to maybe approach an avenue that is not going to be as lucrative as it would be in 2019 or in 2021. So that's basically what I'm seeing is going to happen for Arizona State. If those two players come back, along with 2 5-star true freshmen and Marcus Bagley and Josh Christopher, along with some talented proven players coming back, this is by far going to be the best squad that Bobby Hurley had in Tempe. And sure, there's a lot that's going to be lost in the if you look ahead to the 21-22 season. But as much as you should be excited for football season to take place and you want it to happen trust me, you should be as equally excited for this basketball season to take place, because the squad that Bobby Hurley has at his disposal this year is absolutely off the charts. It is closer than ever to capturing that elusive Pac-12 championship, or what was one time a Pac-10 championship, closer than possible to get that rare Sweet 16 appearance in the NCAA tournament. I mean, there's really a lot of excitement if all the pieces come back for Bobby Hurley. And absolutely. You talk about the Googling of Bobby Hurley. So just we talk about the credibility that Arizona State has with an NFL coach like Herm Edwards, with a Super Bowl champion like Antonio Pierce, with a Hall of Famer in Kevin Mawai. Arizona State basketball can offer that same credibility with arguably having a head coach that was the best point guard to ever play the game at the college basketball level, somebody who won 2 national championships with Duke, a true blue blood out there among college programs. So it's definitely all elements that help Arizona State in recruiting in basketball as well.
It almost feels like if Remy and Alonzo were to come back, then it would almost make the 21-22 season almost feel like a reload, or not necessarily a rebuild, right? Because again, now you are bringing in additional talent, and the talent is, we're not getting the generic coffee now, right? Bobby Hurley is bringing some of that, to quote Pulp Fiction, that gourmet shit. And so it's really coming in that way, in the sense that it's like he has that credibility. And given the brouhaha that the national media broke, I guess in a few weeks ago, that actually went down last year, that seems to have taken care of. So I don't want to get too bogged down in the whole lawsuit back and forth and favorability and all that other stuff. I just wanted to be able to say, that seems that they've moved on, and that we're really moving into something that has more legs. And I think the return of Verge and Remy would actually be a brilliant tide. And I'm sure Coach is talking to both of them, but if they have to do what they have to do, then I obviously will respect that. But one quick question from Blaine. I really appreciate the question. Which big man do you think will have a breakout year for Coach Hurley? Right, I am still a Cherry fan. I still really want him to just absolutely blow up. This will be his junior year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what do you think? Given the conversation, what you saw and what you're hearing.
Well, when you talk about big man, it's almost have to put him in 2 separate categories. Is it somebody that plays in the paint more like a Romello White did, for example? And if that's what you're looking for, then I would look for someone like Jalen Graham, the talented local freshman, well, now soon to be sophomore,
right?
That did prep locally at Phoenix Mountain Point. He's somebody that I don't think I had like huge expectations for coming into the season. And if you look at somebody who was the biggest surprise on the team, then I would say definitely Jalen Graham, because I think Alonzo
Verge was
a
revelation last year. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alonzo Verge was perhaps the top junior college player. So to see what he did at Arizona State, granted more in the Pac-12 season rather than the non-conference slate, wasn't really a big surprise. We knew that guy could be a scoring machine, a clutch player, and luckily for Arizona State, he did prove it quite a bit in Pac-12 play. Jalen Graham, I'm not going to say really came out of nowhere, but I think it definitely was more of a surprise. And in the periods of time where he did spell Romello White last year, I think he definitely did very well, especially for a freshman.
Right.
His first taste of the Pac-12 level. So that's a big man that I think can really have a breakout year because he's probably the de facto starter right now for Arizona State when you look at the center position, or at least a post player. Tayshaun Cherry is more of what you call in the basketball jargon a stretch four. Maybe not somebody that really has a strong paint game, but definitely somebody who, by definition of the stretch four, can really stretch the defense with his deft jump shooting, especially from 3-point range. He's somebody that obviously can get much more playing time than he got until now, and definitely can be one player that can benefit from that extra attention that players like Remy Martin, Alonzo Verge, Josh Christopher, and Marcus Bagley are going to receive. So I'm really curious to see how much of a role Tayshaun Cherry is going to play, because I don't know if he necessarily would play over Jalen Graham, just because Jalen Graham, in terms of his paint game on both ends of the court, brings an element to the table that maybe Tayshaun Cherry doesn't really have that much, at least not at this point of his career. But Tayshaun Cherry is somebody that I definitely expect to take a step forward. And again, when you have Remy Martin, Alonzo Verge, Josh Christopher, Marcus Bagley, those are players that are really going to occupy the minds of an opposing defense quite a bit. And that opens the door that much more for Jalen Graham and Tayshaun Cherry by default to floor. So I'm really expecting those two players to take a pretty significant step next year. Again, assuming that those four players that I mentioned really carry the load like everybody expects them to.
I think that's it's an interesting problem to have. I am fortunately we have this kind of a problem, right? Being able to be in that way, because I think that's where a lot of the, again, I always look to history, right, and looking at the other programs, especially the one down south, how they were able to kind of build their way up, and it's actually bringing someone in that, you know, Olsen had experience winning elsewhere, but Bobby did something very good at Buffalo. So I'm just trying to always draw parallels with that and how they're able to recruit and bring in. And I think it's definitely, like you said, the credibility of Bobby Hurley himself being able to bring in. And so one of the other things, and I'm going to have you back, this is something that we don't, again, and if you're okay going past 8, because we still haven't even played a game yet, but one of the things that I don't briefly bring up is that everyone's always talking about having an X's and O's coach, right? That's always something out there that I never know how to answer or respond or even think about that relative to the staff we have, right? And so what does an X and O's coaches mean relative to who we have on staff, and is that a gap that we really need to fill in, or is that just something that experience that Coach Hurley's going to have?
I think that when you looked at the first few years of Bobby Hurley, it was kind of hard maybe for some folks to get past the major name that came to Arizona State and forget that he only had 2 years of head coaching experience at Buffalo when he arrived at Arizona State.
Right.
Now, his name carries a lot of cachet. And when you look at the recruiting at Arizona State being at a whole different level than it was from many of the coaches that preceded Bobby Hurley, that's definitely tied to his name. But in terms of the chess match that the Arizona State coaching staff had to play each and every game with the opposing staff, sometimes they did come off on the short end. And I think maybe the biggest wake-up call, if you will, was that magical 2017-18 season. They go undefeated in non-conference play, 12-0, are ranked number 3 in the country, knocked off 2 teams in Xavier and Kansas that ended up being number 1 seeds in the following March in the NCAA tournament. And they proceeded to finish, I believe, 8-10 in Pac-12 play, ranked 8th in the conference at the regular season, got bounced the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. And here they are in the NCAA tournament, much of the chagrin of a lot of programs in the Pac-12 and nationwide that did not make it. I thought Arizona State didn't deserve to be in it. But I think that's when maybe the X's and O's element came to play, because a lot of fans were at a loss, say, how can you go 12-0 in non-conference play, knock off Xavier on a neutral court,
Absolutely.
knock off Kansas and Lawrence, and come back and really not play well at all in Pac-12 play. I think that the X's and O's element of the staff has improved, and the stat that really jumps out at me is the number of times that Arizona State was able to engineer a halftime comeback.
Yes.
And you look at the game against U of A, they weren't down 22 at halftime, but they were down 22 in the first half and won a game.
I think we all had heart attacks last season because of all those comebacks.
Yeah, that's a game that really had no business winning. But you also can look at that game and say, okay, but you played a talented U of A team that was really riding the true freshmen. And when you live and die by two freshmen, sometimes you lose games like that, like U of A lost to Arizona State in Tempe. So I think
But they can't complain that it was a down year.
Yeah, that's true, because that was a team that was just like Arizona State, pretty much a shoo-in to be
exactly
in the NCAA tournament. They finished 5th in the Pac-12, so I mean, maybe not a typical year in Wildcat standards, but it definitely wasn't a throwaway year by any means.
Exactly.
So I think when you look at the number of the halftime comebacks that Arizona State is able to engineer in the last 2 or so years, I think maybe that X's and O's element that maybe wasn't there for the first few seasons of the Bobby Hurley era is getting better and better. Right. I think one thing that you have to keep in mind that, yes, in basketball, with the AAU landscape, you have to have one, perhaps even two coaches with strong AAU ties so you can land those blue chips out there where it's not only what you can offer as a program, but also offer as an assistant coach on staff that is tied into the correct AAU personnel that ultimately dictate where player X or player Y are going to go to college. So it's a very delicate tightrope to navigate. I'm not saying that Arizona State has navigated all that well.
Of course.
But when you look at overall the recruiting success that Bobby Hurley has had, I think you definitely had more recruiting wins than losses in the 6 years that Bobby Hurley has been here. So, again, the X's and O's element is better. And I think we can all firmly judge it when the rubber meets the road with, again, an absolute loaded squad, a squad, as you mentioned, Rob, that gives that good headaches for a coach. How many minutes do I give to player X over player Y? How do I make sure that everybody's happy when we only have one basketball? I think the X's and O's element of the staff will be judged even more harshly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Season when you have so much talent that you think it's impossible really to screw it up.
Right, because that's the X and O, because the grit, as Coach mentions it, right? That's definitely not X and O's. That's more emotion, right? It's not necessary. So, and that was actually one of the questions in the chat, right? Is Hurley progressed more as a recruiter or as an on the court coach? And it seems that given their conversation, it seems that he's actually making great strides both ways. But your thoughts?
No, I would agree. Again, don't mean to harp on the halftime adjustments that Arizona State has done very well in the last couple of years under Bobby Hurley. But even if you're not the greatest Bobby Hurley fan out there for whatever reason, to say that he's lacking the X's and O's element when you see that many halftime comebacks, some of them double-digit halftime comebacks, I have a problem with saying that he really lacks in the X's and O's department. Again, if you say it was more of an issue the first 2-3 years, if you point to that 2017-18 season where the Pac-12 season was in such sharp contrast in an adverse manner, obviously, to the non-conference season, sure, that is a valid argument. But I think what we saw this season and last season does validate to some extent that this element of the X's and O's for Bobby Hurley and the staff really has improved. Again, the scrutiny, the being under the microscope aspect is going to be tenfold
Right.
this year because, again, with the level of talent that you have in 2021 season, it's on the one hand, it's really hard to screw up, but if you unfortunately do screw it up, then the exit and those conversation will definitely rear its ugly head.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, is that expectations are through the roof. I know John Rothstein is a huge fan, so he's definitely really high on Bobby Hurley and the Sun Devils, so he's in there. Also, what you're talking about the halftime comeback wins. I think that's definitely a metric that no one really appreciates. So that's actually an infographic that I actually just brainstormed, so thank you for that. I will absolutely
Sure.
credit you on that one. Transitioning to the other major sport, which is ASU baseball. Last one before we play a few games. ASU baseball is the only baseball I follow. Everything else gets muted. But it was a brilliant day the past 2 days from the Major League Baseball draft. They actually obviously got the #1 draft pick with Torque out there, but there was a lot of other talent, and I think Joe Healy was actually very astute to call that one out, that this is actually something that, this would have been a run to Omaha. I think that's what would have happened this year, which would have been freaking brilliant, because I think it would have been very interesting, because I think we're in a position, the same thing USC fans are in, right? There has always been this chatter for USC fans to no longer have Clay Helton there. And there has been a lot of chatter about not having Skip as our coach anymore. So I think, again, given the Rona and everything else, has definitely given him another year. But I think all of these players that were drafted were full Skip recruits, right? Or were they?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to be able to see that. So then now it's a matter of, it was a brilliant day, right? So again, talk about the 5 that were drafted, and then we'll talk about who's behind that. So about the draft day. So it was, again, you got 5. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the Tracy Smith critics said that it's taking him too long to build this program, and we are Arizona State. We should be able to load much quicker than we did. And a lot of people criticized athletic director Ray Anderson for being extra patient
Right.
with Tracy Smith, when maybe he shouldn't have been. Again,
And I don't know why I called him Skip, but anyway.
Well, it is Arizona State skipper, so yeah. I mean, that's
Maybe that's thank you for giving me an out.
But I think that Ray Anderson's confidence in Tracy Smith has been validated, maybe not in the manner that everybody wanted to see, which, as you mentioned, would be a potential run
That
to
instant
Omaha in the
gratitude.
College World Series.
Yeah.
But validated in look at all this talent that Tracy Smith was able to draft and to coach up. I'm sorry, to recruit, to coach up, and as a result,
Right.
being drafted, and some of them in the highest rounds. I mean, 2 first-round picks, Spencer Torkelson and Leka Williams. So
that's cool.
That, again, is an argument. If you're a Tracy Smith backer, that said, just give him time. Look what he did. Let him keep on recruiting at this level. And obviously, this is a great tool for Arizona State to use out there. Because look, baseball recruiting, and I know I'm not breaking any news over here, it is much harder than football and basketball recruiting. I mean, no sport.
I can only imagine when you have the league actually in your ear right out of high school.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, how do you know how much time and effort to invest in player X, trying to make that continuous calculation? Okay, is he going to get drafted by MLB? How high is he going to get drafted by MLB? Is it realistic for him to play college for ASU or any other team? I mean, those are the discussions. Those are the mental gymnastics that Tracy Smith and his staff are doing on a daily basis when they deal with the recruiting aspect. So I think to Tracy Smith's credit, he was able to navigate those waters quite successfully, and the success that Arizona State has had in the draft is a great testament to that. And yeah, I mean, just like basketball, where I think this Bobby Hurley team was poised to definitely make some noise, both in the Pac-12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. I think you can say the same about Tracy Smith and his squad, and now we're never going to know.
Got it. Yeah.
And now it's a matter of, okay, you lost all these draft picks. What is your team going to look like in 2021? And now you're going to have again those two factions, because if Tracy Smith does fail, then all the critics come on again and say, hey, we told you so. Tracy Smith was maybe a one-year wonder with all those players that got drafted. Can't do anything when he loses all the talent. He can't reload quickly enough. And then you're going to have the faction of the Tracy Smith backers saying, hey, we gave Tracy Smith some time. And even through some of the toughest seasons that Arizona State baseball's ever endured, look what the payoff was in the end.
Right.
When it came to the number of players that got drafted, this is a sign that we should still give Tracy Smith a vote of confidence, which I know sometimes is a dreaded term.
Yeah.
But let him build this program so we're sitting here 2-3 years from now talking about a handful of players getting drafted again by MLB. So from what I know, I think Ray Anderson is going to still give Tracy Smith that vote of confidence. And I know that's going to alienate half of the ASU fan base. But with everything that I heard until now, I think that's what's going to happen. And we'll see what transpires. We'll see what transpires in 2021. I mean, sure, you can definitely predict a lot of gloom and doom when you lose that much talent.
Of course.
But on the other hand, do you look at what Tracy Smith did, developing all this talent that got drafted, and do you say, okay, he can still reload much quicker than a lot of people would give him credit for? That's going to be a really curious situation to follow when it comes to the baseball team in 2021.
Right. And that's interesting. The ASU had the number 1 recruiting class. Was that last year or 2 years ago? And what did that include? Torque. I can't remember.
I believe it was last year. Don't quote me on that. So maybe in that vein, a lot of people are expecting 2021 not to be a sharp drop off. I know it was a very good recruiting class. Offhand, I don't remember what the ranking was.
Absolutely.
But again, I think that is something that definitely would point to the proposition of give Tracy Smith time. Yes, he went through some really bad, if not horrible, years in Arizona State basketball.
Yeah.
Arizona State baseball standards. But let's see what he can do in 21 and beyond when you give him the time to really mold and coach up all those talented recruits.
It'll be interesting because I just thought about this as we were talking, right? This will be so remember the first streak that we broke, right, was that ASU did make the playoffs. I guess it was a couple years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So are all the haters going to hold ASU not making the playoffs this year? Who knows? But
yep.
I think that's an unfair ask, but that's what I wanted to do. But like you said, I think it's exciting time. It's very curious. Again, obviously there's a lot of chatter with the preseason talk about ASU football. I think Dennis Dodd posted something on Twitter about, how the ASU experiment is working and how they're able to, laugh at the naysayers. And I even retweeted that out. I'm like, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I mean, being fair, and I'm sure you'll get that from Herm Edwards, right? That'll be one of the first things out. It's like, well, hold on. There's still a lot of work to get done. I appreciate the excitement. I'm always happy about getting the attention, but, there's a lot of work to be done as well. So, yes, I appreciate it. So, it's top of the hour, 8 o'clock. I know I only gave this for an hour, but we're going to go ahead and make sure. So, everyone, thanks again for your questions. I think we answered all the questions, but now we transition to game time. So for you, I know we talked about this one here earlier, right? Because we were giving you an example of some of the games. So for some of you who have joined the Sun Devil Summit in real life, we actually do a virtual Sun Devil Summit online. We just had one last week. The next one is going to be July 10th, so we're hoping all of you get to be able to be part of that. But we actually play games, share some stories. I'm trying to go ahead and make sure we get some former players to share some of theirs. Kyle Murphy has been outstanding sharing some of those. But one of these games that we play in here is called if you had to. You can probably see that out there on your second screen, Hode. But what I'm going to do is I'm holding up 2 cards from the game if you had to. And again, you have heard this one already, so I'm going to actually ask you this question again. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 6 sets of questions, but the worst. This is probably the worst one. So again, if you're in it, so we'll go ahead and go there. So Rothfarb, glad you had an outstanding one as well. So we got some questions here. Hode, would you rather work as a failing porn director, or 2, text your friends every time you masturbate? Which one would you rather do in this situation? Again, if you have a no answer, that's okay. I have more available to you. So which one would you rather, my man?
I would pick the failed porn director, and if it's okay, I won't provide an explanation.
At least you're having some fun. All right, so I got another one for you. Relive middle school, or fill your pants with gravy every morning. Which one would you rather?
No, middle school wasn't really too bad.
Okay.
I guess maybe the biggest thing was getting the ridicule that you shaved your mustache at age 13 or so. But
well, nowadays I guess we got to shave your legs and your back too. So at least that would be my case too as well. So let's see here. This one was actually kind of interesting. So all of your meals are fed to you as if you are a baby bird, or 2, you can talk to animals but they all hate you. That's kind of tough.
Yeah, I think I would talk to the animals, and assuming they understand me, then that's why they hate me. Then that's fine. I'd love to know what the animals think about me. So.
I think it would be. My heart would break, man, because I'm like, damn, it's like little puppy, hey puppy. It's like, and then they just f you and everything, or they poop on your shoe. Who knows?
Yeah.
This one was kind of. This one isn't too bad actually. Eat all your meals off Vin Diesel's head, or have Bruce Willis as a pet.
Wow.
That's tough, man.
And they're both bald, by the way. That's I don't know if
that's the bald theme for tonight.
The bald thing, yeah. Wow. I mean, if I said Bruce Willis as a pet, I guess I would really come off inhumane. I really don't want to do that.
You still got to pick up the doo-doo too. That's not going to be fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a big Die Hard fan. You know, I mean, not that I hate.
We could
Fast
talk
and
about
Furious.
the movie.
Yeah, not that I hate Fast and Furious, but I think I like Die Hard series better than Fast and Furious. So.
How many Fast and Furious movies have you seen?
I've seen all of them. I
have
seen
you?
them
Okay.
I haven't seen each year they came out. I mean, maybe starting 4 or 5.
You're
I
caught
saw
up
the year
though.
that came out, and then I went back to watch the old ones.
The only one I've seen is Hobbs and Shaw, so that's the extent of my experience.
Yeah, by the way, I think the stunts there are really underrated. I don't know if they ever won an Oscar for special effects.
No, probably not, because if they're every year, there's always some. I don't even know if they're nominated. That's actually curious. You're right.
Yeah, I mean that Mission Impossible. I mean the stunts are amazing, and doesn't that can never get recognized by the Academy, which is I don't know why. But.
It's a travesty. So which one are you going to do? You're going to eat food off Vin Diesel's head, and again, it's this one or Bruce Willis's pet.
Just because I like Die Hard more than Fast and Furious, I would say eat food off of the.
You got. All right, so I got 2 last ones. Okay, I got 2, and I'm going to let you pick the group. Group A or Group B? I'm not telling you which one. B? All right, good.
B.
So you don't have to talk about boobs or Jabba the Hutt. Group B. Emit ink like a squid when you get scared, or 2, the entire world's water supply comes from a spigot on your forehead. Which one would you rather?
As much as I consider myself a nice social person with good interpersonal skills, I would have to pick the squid.
The which one?
The squid, the first
I
one.
feel you, man. I don't want the world just constantly doing this. So anyway,
Too much pressure. Too much pressure.
it's like literally because it's all coming out. So then here we go. So let me see here. Okay, so this is the next game called the Misery Index, right? So I have 3 cards here, and then I have a 4th mystery card.
Okay.
These are scored from 0 to 100 on how awful some people feel the situation is. Like this one. Your favorite local team relocates is only scored as a 41.5. Personally, if my favorite local team relocated, I would be devastated.
Yeah.
Tattoo mistake. People are only rating that as a 57. It's a little more than awful, but it's not as awful.
Okay.
Win the Powerball, lose a ticket. They scored as a 69, so not as nice.
Oh, much higher than that. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly, totally. But you get a card here. You wet the
Okay.
bed every night. From a misery index perspective, is that more or less than your favorite team located at a 41.5? More or less than the tattoo mistake of 57, or more or less than win the Powerball ticket of 69? Where do you
Okay.
think wetting the bed every night scores?
It would have to be more than a 69. I mean, you're talking about the mental embarrassment, the
Laundry.
physical embarrassment of changing your sheets and your mattress pad every day.
Laundry on the itself, man.
Oof.
I don't know
Yeah.
who these people are, but they rated a 68.5. I don't
Really?
know who. Again, that's the exact reaction everyone else gave on the summit. It's like everyone's crazy. That's a
Yeah.
heck of a lot worse than what everyone's putting it out as. But anyway, all right. So I got 3 more here for you. Last one of this game. Let me see here. All right. The lowest one. I don't rate this a 77.5, but the first one is smell like a fart for the rest of your life. I would score that one a little higher, but according to the game, it's a 77.5.
Okay.
The next one, organ traffickers drug you and steal your kidney. It's an 85.5, so it's still, I'm not sure what 14.5 people said it's not that bad,
Yeah.
but anyway, we got this here, all right, at an 85.5, and then a 93.5, you get bit on the genitals by a rattlesnake. So that's our scale, 77.5 to 93.5.
Okay.
Peeing on an electric fence. Where do you think this fits on that misery index between more or less than smelling like a fart, more or less than organ traffickers, or more or less than rattlesnake biting your genitals?
I would say between the second and the third option.
And that's the interesting thing. I probably would have scored it higher, but they actually put it right above the fart. Peeing on a fence is only an 80.5. Again, which 19.5 people feel that this one's actually worse? Who knows? So anyway, that's actually fantastic. So everyone in the chat, we got a game for you here. You get to participate in this one. This one's called Blank Slate. So this one actually no, I don't. Let's see. I'm going to give Hode a word. You guys are going to go ahead and guess what heat is. Actually, Mr. Rothfarb, if you actually, Mr. Rothfarb asks, are you touching the fence while peeing? If you watch, if you watch MythBusters, all you have to do is pee, and if the stream is consistent, you're doomed. So you don't have to touch it. It's actually going to zing you through the stream. But anyway, this is Hode's word, blank bite. So to go ahead and think of the word blank bite. So what you're going to do, chat, is that you're going to go ahead and submit your guess as to what Hode might fill in as blank bite. There's many, many possibilities. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write down everyone's answer. So many, many possibilities, but I think we're going to go ahead and figure that out. But if you're in there, everyone out in chat, I'm not exactly sure how many viewers. We're up to 9, so that's actually pretty good. Everyone type your answer into the chat, see who gets that, but it's blank bite. There's a whole There's a whole slew of them. I'm trying to figure out. I've been watching a lot of particular shows, so I think I know which way I would go with that one. Got a couple answers in there. I didn't even think about that one. I actually kind of like some of these. Anyone else? We got 4 answers in here. You can probably see the chat, Hode, if you can, right there. Hopefully they're not influencing you, or you've probably written down.
I actually toggled to a different screen, so I won't see it.
I understand. So blank. Hopefully you can see the card on the stream on your other screen. But blank bite. Which word do you think? Which word are you filling in with blank, Hode? Blank bite. Which one is what's your answer?
And bite, B-I-T-E, right?
B-I-T-E, not bite as in a computer term. You are correct.
Yeah,
Bite, B-I-T-E.
That's the techie in me.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that entirely.
Yeah. The word I think is frost, as in frost.
Frost, nice, as in Scott Frost.
That too.
That's right. Matt, congrats on that one. You won that one as well, so you are one outstanding, Matt. Thank you for that. One more we got on here. This one's actually keeping with the theme. Bear blank, B-A-R-E, as in nothing. Bear blank. If you go ahead and look at the screen, Hode, in a little while, in a few seconds, because we're delayed. But bear, B-A-R-E, bear.
Okay.
As in naked or without or uncovered or something else like that. But bear blank. Hopefully, I don't know. It's only one answer. I think I'm trying to think of other one. If there's other ones. Well, no, there's another one. No, okay, I just came up with a second one. I don't know if that's actually, if I could say that on a family show, but
I don't know, Rob. I think the family show threshold has been broken.
I think we threw that one out there. Yeah, that's. I've never promoted this as a family show anyway. Although YouTube makes me select is it for kids. So anyway.
Yeah, definitely not.
Actually, these are some good answers, man. So what? So that is. I like some of them. What is your answer? Bear blank. Bear blank, Hode. What are you thinking?
I would say bare necessities.
Nice. I actually was with Gina. I said bare naked. There's bare bottom. Randy has bare. Rob and actually Mr. Rothfarb have bare elegance. I was going to say bare back. Again, that is the whole, family show getting thrown out. One last one.
Okay.
Oh. What do we do? Let's see. Blank pole. Blank pole. P-O-L-E.
Okay.
So pipe, rod, or stick. Pole. All right. Blank pole. No one got the necessities, so that's actually everything else. So that one is all right. So blank pole. I'm sure you probably have one there. So let's see who else is getting it. That's right. So I'll go ahead and blank. Oops. Let me go ahead and do this. Blank poll. There we go. I typed it into chat, so then this way we got. Okay, good. We got an answer already. We got 2 answers. I think we got maybe 1 or 2 more, and then we'll go in there. Oh, look at Forkham Devils. Look at, we got a new one, new answer in the chat. Outstanding. Hopefully, can you see the chat, by the way, in the other window, Hode?
I can, but I'm purposely covering it up, so I won't.
I got you. It's okay. That's all right. It's all right. So, what is your answer, good sir? Blank poll. What do you think, Hode?
Well, I want to keep it a family show, so I'll say north.
North. Outstanding. So, Forkham Devils and Matt Flory. Excellent. There we go. Well, Matt, congratulations. Of those, you are the one that matched the most. So, Matt, I don't know if you are a subscriber to Devil's Digest, but if you are not, shoot me an email, jediasu@gmail.com, and I'll get you 2 months. I'll get you a subscription so you can be part of the huddle. If not, if you're already a subscriber, then we'll go ahead and work on getting you a gift card to Cactus Sports, which is a brilliant sponsor of Devil's Digest as well. as an alum and so forth as well. So we appreciate that. So. Um, Outstanding. So we appreciate it. So you're already out there. So I guess we get to go ahead and get you a gift card. So let me go ahead and gift card to um, Cactus. Done. Just had to make a note of that. So, what's on deck for you for the rest of the summer, Hode? I know that there's going to be here and there, and you know what's going on. Obviously, I don't think you can cover some of the weight training and everything else that's going on out there. But what are you going to do for the rest of the summer?
Yeah, basically, a lot of our coverage when it comes to interviewing coaches and players is still going to be virtual. I mean, most of it's just really just old school phone conversations. But not to jump too ahead, I'm just really curious how our coverage is going to be in the future when you're talking about being in the same room as an ASU coach or player. You just kind of wonder if all of that is something that we'll see in 2021, hopefully, but perhaps not see for the rest of this year. But we're definitely going to have as many coaches and player interviews as we can leading up to the season throughout fall camp and whatnot. Obviously the recruiting stories has been the lion's share of all the articles. Recruiting never stops, as everybody knows, and there's always some news about new offers, let alone the players committing here or there. So we're definitely going to stay on top of that. And we already started to publish a series of articles of where are they now, former ASU players that
Oh, interesting.
We think fans would be interested in learning about. We had one about Derek Glasser, the all-time assist leader
Right.
at Arizona State. We have some really good ones that are coming down the pike that I think people really enjoy reading. We also had some other where are they now articles. Just the names of those articles are escaping right now. But we're just trying to fill the void with new and fresh content as much as we can. And
Absolutely.
there's definitely challenges, but we're in the same boat as every other media outlet. So goes back to my opening statement. Just rolling with the punches right now. Putting out as much content as possible, and maybe it's presented differently, but nonetheless, I think it's still at the same standards as we would have in the quote unquote normal season.
Now, are any of the other publishers from the other Pac-12 schools or any other schools nationally reaching out to you just to see, hey, what is ASU doing or so forth? Because, I mean, it's one of the things I guess everyone's getting ready for, but are you getting those requests now?
Not yet, to be honest. We did do it right after spring practices ended for all teams, reached out, exchanged our observations. Obviously, you have a case where ASU had 7 spring football practices.
Right.
That's the most out of any Pac-12 team. You had a handful, a little more than that had about 3 or 4. And then
no one had as many spring practices as ASU, I would guess.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah. And then the teams in Washington, just because they're one of the states that locked down the earliest, they had no spring practices. I think USC also wasn't able to have a spring practice. They had to cancel one, reschedule, and something happened, and then they weren't able to practice. Or maybe they were able to get one. So I guess what I'm trying to make is it's really hard to get an accurate assessment of all the teams in the Pac-12 and how they're doing. But I think as we get into the thick of fall camps of the rest of the Pac-12 teams, anybody that's been on my site knows that I definitely make it a point to talk to the other 11 publishers, get the finger on the pulse, and see how they are feeling going into the season. And sure, it might be a trickier proposition than other years, but that's something we definitely have planned. And hopefully all the teams are able to have full fall camp practices so all the publishers can just answer each other's questions in the most educated way.
That was freaking brilliant, though, that ASU was able to have that many spring practices, because, I mean, it's always on all the podcasts I listen to, everyone's like, holy crap, ASU had 7 full practices before everything went to pot, right? Now it's like, is there going to be infighting because ASU had as much as four more practices than anyone else did, right? How does that impact? What's that? And it's like, you know what? I mean, when you got when it's 80 degrees in February, you can do that, right? I
Sure.
mean, it's just like if you can't build a dome and go practice, when you're not getting beat up by snow. But I think it's just everyone. I remember there was all kinds of brouhaha about it being so early, and now they did it again, and they're like, I think it's going to be, it's gonna pull everyone forward. I think a lot of people are going to do it again.
Yeah, and the ironic part of it, you mentioned it being so early. If you remember, I believe it was last year, they actually started spring practice the first week of February, and they ended
That's
it
right.
literally on February 28th. And they did that because that would allow the coaching staff to really devote as much time to prepare the recruiting landscape, if you will, because on a normal year,
Right.
April 15th, all the coaches are allowed to go on the road, evaluate prospects as they go through their respective spring practices or just observe them in a weight room, what have you. And if this pandemic hit last year, I mean, wish it didn't hit at all, obviously, but if it hit last year,
Right.
Arizona State would be the lone Pac-12 school to actually have all 15 practices in the books
Right.
before the pandemic ever hit. And the reason Arizona State started later this year, the last week of February, is just because they wanted to make sure that a good portion of their practices were taking place during a recruiting period where recruits were allowed to be on
Got it.
campus.
So they could actually
So
see what's going
yeah, so
on.
that's why ASU was able to get 7 practices in instead of 15 or pretty close to it. So as anything in life, timing is everything, and the
They got it.
timing somewhat worked for ASU, but if this was 2019, it would work perfectly for ASU, at least in
They
terms
were
of
able to do it.
terms of getting all practices in. But again, you hate to use that word perfectly when you talk about a timing of a pandemic. Obviously, the best timing for a pandemic is for it to never happen. Period. In the story. But for ASU, it was really crucial because obviously having a new offensive coordinator and really new defensive coordinators, for that matter, employing new schemes on both sides of the ball, you can make the argument that very few teams in the Pac-12 needed as many spring practices as possible as ASU. I think Oregon, I'm sorry, Colorado and Washington State are the only ones that probably
Oh
needed
yeah,
just
that's
as
right. They have
bad.
complete new staff.
Yeah, just as bad as Arizona State. So yeah, ASU has been very, very lucky in that regard. If anybody read the interviews that I did with both offensive coordinator Zach Hill and co-defensive coordinator Antonio Pierce, they uh, talked very highly of the fact that they did have those 7 sessions. That gave them a lot of film to chew on, to break on, and to see how these new schemes can really effectively be employed in Tempe. So for ASU, it definitely was huge having the 7 practices. You like to have all 15, but if you can have virtually half of those session allotments, that is definitely significant.
Absolutely. Again, like just like I said about basketball, and same thing with baseball. It's a good problem to have, right? I
Sure.
mean, I just, you have been it's been such a long run of battered fan syndrome that it's just like this is cool. This is actually very cool the way they're taking care of it, but thinking about it and everything else. That it is, for lack of a better word, playing a 3D chess, if you will, right? How they're preparing, how they're planning, how they're staging. The whole, what's the word? Coach in waiting type of conversation. Again, that's
Yep.
that's all going on there. But again, it was interesting listening to Brad Denny's podcast and how he talked about how Marvin Lewis leaked the plan for Kevin My Way and everything else. So it was just kind of
Yeah.
interesting to be able to see how they are truly. And again, I am still relatively new to all the college football conversation. I don't know how other schools, you know, put their pieces on the board for the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years, right? But you would think there would have to be some sort of conversation there. I didn't get that in the Graham era. I know I didn't get that in the Erickson era. I don't know how it was in the
Yeah.
Cutter era,
Yeah.
right? But it's just, and even in the Snyder era, right? It was, I don't know if it was the strategy for what's the next play or the next 5 plays was that way. So it just seems, and again, maybe it's just a maturity thing on my side that I'm able to see it a little bit more, and I didn't when I was younger. But it's just exciting to see.
No, I agree, and you know, for somebody who's covered Arizona State for 20 years, the very tail end of the Snyder era and thereon, there never was any succession plan whatsoever. I mean, Dirk Cutter, for example, his first major college coaching job coming from Boise State was ASU. So to talk about a
Right.
succession plan for him was way premature. Even though Dennis Erickson was definitely on the back nine of his coaching career when he came to Tempe, there never was any talk about succession plan or anything like that.
Right. Who's
Definitely not
coming
with
in?
Todd Graham. Arizona State was the second uh, Power Five program that he ever coached at that point when he came to Tempe. But with Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce being the coach in waiting, and that really was followed by a somewhat Danny Gonzalez head coach in the waiting. Uh, there
Right.
definitely was understanding that Herm Edwards wasn't going to be a three and done coach at Arizona State, but definitely wasn't going to be somebody that was expected to be here 7, 8 years. And Herm Edwards has talked candidly about grooming Antonio Pierce to be the next head coach.
Yes.
He jokes about all
You've shared
the
that.
4 or 5 titles that Antonio Pierce has that can barely fit the name plaque outside of his office, and the
Right.
fact that Antonio Pierce is involved in a lot of high level decisions. And even if Antonio Pierce was here in 2020 not as a co-defensive coordinator, it still would kind of be a weird dynamic that he would be involved in so many decisions, high level decisions, that is, that a normal linebackers coach would not be involved in. So that
Right.
might have made it kind of created a weird dynamic. And now that he's co-defensive coordinator, it makes more sense. But yeah, I think that the head coaching waiting is something real. I could sit here and talk for 4 hours how valuable Antonio Pierce is for the ASU coaching staff, for the
That's the next
direction of this
episode.
ASU
Everyone,
football
hold on to
program.
your
Yeah,
butts.
and I probably wouldn't do justice to his importance, his significance in the ASU program. So he's definitely somebody that ASU wants to keep happy pretty much at all costs. And him
Absolutely.
being and him being in the head coach in waiting, I'm sorry, is definitely one way to achieve that. And obviously, Antonio Pierce has huge respect for Herm Edwards, and he knows that he basically works in an environment where he has a lot of freedom that he wouldn't have in other programs. And obviously, when the day comes and he's going to be head coach, which I don't think is going to be more than 2, 3 years from now, then that's really the ultimate freedom, the ultimate writing your own
Right.
ticket in the coaching profession. So that's something that's really significant, and that's something that you don't want to say is etched in stone, but
Hmm.
there have been more than one hint that things are heading in that direction.
Exactly. No, I agree. It's been noted, and it's everything else. Again, and not trying to get Marvin Lewis out of there, but again, he's happy to be back. But again, he's not
Sure.
going to be there forever either. So I think it's again, I think that's a conversation for the next year after, right? Is okay. Who are they grooming to bring and be able to come in? And I think this has always been one of the things that I'll maintain as well is that I do love that they continue to bring in people from the NFL. Not necessarily because, like Coach Rodriguez, is it Rodriguez, the DL line,
Yeah,
right?
Robert
Again,
Rodriguez, defensive line
right?
coach.
Again,
Mm-hmm.
former player, former coach now, and everything else. And the thing is that the reason I love them bringing in everyone from the NFL is not because of their experience and what they can do and what they share and kind of promise you the next level. Is I don't remember who said this, but maybe it was actually I think it was Coach Edwards that said it about Antonio Pierce. They've made their money, right? You don't have a Mike Norvell looking for the next head coaching position for a bigger contract. You don't have, Chip Long looking for another coordinator opportunity to be able to go to. It's like you have people that have, for lack of a better word, made their money. They have the experience. Now they're actually more interested in building something rather than, okay, where's my next opportunity? And I think that's kind of why it almost feels like they won't leave because they're more invested in making something great than where's my next paycheck.
Yeah, no, I really agree with it 100%. And And it's also a matter of, Kevin Mawai, right now still an offensive analyst. It's not like he came, with four or five college stops before he came to Arizona State.
Right.
Derek Hagan was an offensive analyst up until this last season.
And he's a legacy.
And he's an assistant coach. Antonio Pierce, his first college coaching job anywhere, was here at Arizona State. So yeah, I mean, you're not bringing in the players that have been at the lower level college programs like a Chip Long or like a Mike Norvell.
Exactly.
Definitely see Arizona State as that stepping stone to something bigger and better. Now, it's not that Antonio Pierce has not been pursued by NFL programs.
Oh, absolutely. Programs. I can imagine.
He absolutely has. But Antonio Pierce, when I interview him and when you look at other interviews that he does, he's happy over here. For him to come, like he said, come to work with a smile on his face, leaving work with a smile on his face, working for somebody that gave him a shot as a college coach when a lot of other college coaches could have done it and nobody did but Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards dropped that hint years and years ago, says, if I'm coming back to college, you're coming with me. And Antonio Pierce probably didn't think anything of it. And the same day, as the story goes, that Herm Edwards was announced as Arizona State's coach, one of the first phone calls was Antonio Pierce. Say, hey, remember what we talked about? I want you over here on staff. So so I think it's making the money in the NFL and kind of the been there, done that. Sure, that's part of it, but it's also, who is the guy that gave Antonio Pierce, Kevin Mawai, Derek Hagan their first taste of an assistant college coach? That's from Edwards.
That's it,
and that's something that's not going to be forgotten anytime soon, and that's going to help retain those coaches longer than other assistant coaches, which, like you said, Rob, are just using ASU as a stepping stone.
Exactly. And the question in there from Forkham Devils, Kevin, Coach Mawai analyst Mawai needs to go ahead and take over OL coaching duties.
It's coming.
It's going to happen sooner than you think. Actually, go ahead and look. If you go to the Speak of the Devils podcast and listen to the interview with Coach Marvin, and listen very carefully. It's probably about 10, 15 minutes in, but you'll actually kind of see the direction of all that. So let's just say your wish may come true. So
that is a fair statement.
And we aren't, we're not speaking about anything behind the curtain either, because it's already out there. So we don't have to worry about that. And again, Hode and I already talked, so all of you in the chat wanted to know something that Hode knows behind the curtain. I am not going to ask that, even though I would not do that, because, again, you are a dear friend, and I love you, Hode, and thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate you being part of this, part of the inaugural season of the 42 Social Club. I hope you had a good time. I hope it was... Again, as always, actually because of your appearance, similar to what you're doing with Speak of the Devils, I know I'm probably going to have you as a guest multiple times. So I'm actually already thinking about, for your first appearance, and I'm working on these, you're going to get a particular shirt with the logo on it. But then again, I think I have to come up with an award every 5 appearances. So then this way it just keeps, getting better and better. So eventually I think you may get the watch or something. Who knows? But we will figure that one out. But anything you want to promote, anything you want to say or tell everyone, or plug before we sign off for the evening and do a couple announcements?
Yeah, if you haven't already subscribed to devilsdigest.com, please do so. This is definitely a great time to be a member in the Devil's Huddle, because as you can see, slowly but surely we're getting to that preseason mode, starting with voluntary workouts, starting this Monday, and if all goes well, about a month and a half from now, going into actual practices, and before you know it, the season opener will be here, and that's definitely something we'll be following and reporting on really, really closely, let alone the regular season. As I talked about earlier, basketball poised to be Bobby Hurley's best season. We're definitely going to be on top of everything that happens over there. So lots of good reasons to be a premium subscriber of Devil's Digest. You can always follow me on Twitter at Devil's Digest. We'll drop some nuggets over there, some teases to our premium content at
Absolutely.
devilsdigest.com. So encourage everyone to check him out, and I'm lucky to have Jedi ASU to be a member of the Devil's Huddle and drop his knowledge over there and keep the conversation going. So I would say if you enjoy everything that Jedi ASU does over here, you'll enjoy it even more in the Devil's Huddle.
I appreciate you, man. Like I said, you are the blessing that was in my life because I don't think I would have actually had the opportunity to spread as much as I have been able to. So again, even back from 2009 with that first Vontez Burfict video, loading it up and then getting the attention that I was able to. Again, I can't thank you enough. As always, I will always say you gave me my start. Allowed me to give me a platform to do all that. So again, I'm always grateful for you. And as always, I'll definitely buy you dinner when I can.
My pleasure.
Hopefully.
My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it will be soon. But again, always thank you everyone for joining on the chat. Thank you. Ho, don't hang up from the Zoom. I wanted to just catch up with you after the show, but I'm just going to do a couple quick things. We got a virtual Sun Devil Summit on Friday, July 10th. Again, we're going to do that again. We had we went until about 1:30 the last time, so it was a good time. We're going to have some games. Probably going to try to go ahead and line up some additional guests that we can have sharing some stories and so forth. So I'm actually very excited for that. However, so if you want to attend that, if I have, just go ahead and shoot me a DM or shoot me an email, jediasu@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. So then this way you can go ahead and be part of that one. We will have a couple more social clubs, and you are back on screen, Ho, just again so you know. So then, but we got a couple more social clubs. We will have one next Friday on the 19th. Who the guest is, it's a surprise only because I have not booked them. So that's the only thing. That's the only reason I'm saying that. Also, we have another one on the 26th. Who's the guest? Again, a surprise because I haven't booked them. But go ahead and look for the announcements, and I really appreciate you joining. Make sure you bring someone. This is on YouTube, right? So go ahead. I'm sure some of you are already subscribing and following, but if you haven't, make sure you do. Go ahead and do that, and we will make that one happen as well. So, Hode, again, thank you so much. I am, again, always eternally grateful for you. Thank you to the listeners and the watchers and the subscribers for being part of this. And then we're going to do this again next week. We're going to go ahead and make sure you bring yourself something to drink. Make sure you bring your questions on chat, and then make sure you go ahead and make sure you be part of this because, again, without you, it wouldn't be. I'd probably be doing this, and I'd rather talk to you than talk to just, no one. So really appreciate all of you out there. Really appreciate you. Have a great week. Love yourself. Love someone else. Make sure you stay safe out there. Obviously, we got some craziness going on, so want to make sure we are all around and all together and being able to go ahead and be part of this again next week. Again, appreciate you all. Love you all. Good